house and wants to list your property, you're giving that person the exclusive option to sell your property for a period of time. If they have marketed the property, they're expected to put money into the marketing to sell your property. In exchange for that, you're willing to pay a commission, a piece of the property, the amount of your equity, if you will. You're expected to pay for their services that way. Now, when you sign a listing and you give away that right, you no longer have the right to sell your own property without paying that commission, unless you've outlined that right from the very beginning. I like to call that an open-ended listing. Now, when my father-in-law signed his listing agreement, we excluded some certain sales that wouldn't be subject to a commission. So if he sold to anybody in my group, he wouldn't have to pay a commission to the agent. If he sold to any family member, he also wouldn't have to pay a commission. And if he leased the property with an option to buy from anybody other than who the agent brought, he wouldn't have to pay a commission. So what really was happening with this agent-seller relationship is, if you bring me a buyer who wants to pay me off, then I'll pay you a fee. I'll pay you a percentage. But if you don't bring the buyer, and I decide that I need to sell my property in a different way to someone that you didn't bring, I pay you nothing, and we part ways. Now that's fair, isn't it? How many of you signed an open list? Who in here has listed a house? How many of those hands? Raise them high. Come on, we got a count. How many of you signed an open-ended listing when you signed it the first time? Not one of you. Oh, one of you. You went to the classes before. Okay. You are giving away the exclusive option to sell that property. You're limiting your market, and you're limiting your exposure on that property to what the agent themselves will provide for you. And I'm suggesting to you now that that's limiting your buyers. It doesn't give you the ability, if someone else is marketing it, there's a sign in the front yard. Sometimes there isn't any more, the agent doesn't have any more money than you do, and certainly sometimes less money for marketing than you do. And it's your property that you need to sell. Now, I'm not a real estate agent, so I'm not up here trying to get commissions. I'm here to try to help you sell your properties faster. But in order to do so, you need more opportunities for sale, not one opportunity for sale. The other thing is, when you're listing with a real estate agent, only list for a short period of time. Now, that market analysis that's done is meant to encourage you to sign the listing agreement and to show you what your property is worth on the market, as it's compared to other sales that have happened. And most of the time, the sale that's going on that night or that day when you sign the listing agreement is how fast they can get your property sold for you. Yet, we're willing to sign a listing agreement with them that might last 6 months. So why list your property for 6 months if you need a sale in 60 days or 30 days? Shorten your period of time that you've given away this exclusive option to sell a property, and extend it 6 times if they're doing a good job for you. Does that make sense to you? Then, if in 30 days they're not doing a good job, they're going to lose the ability to collect a commission from that property. And you can switch your focus to somebody that's motivated. Maybe a new listing. Sometimes a different office is good, so you expose the property to more agents. Many times when an office lists the property, they have an internal flyer or an internal email talking about the properties that are new to that office. The broker likes to let all their agents know. Well, if that was 6 months ago, how fresh do you think that is on the minds of all the agents that are, touring buyers around property? We have to play that a little smarter, folks. We have to understand what we're giving away and what we have to deal with. Also, the ability to sell it on your own is a powerful motivator to real estate agents that can lose a listing. Now, I like to play fair with the agents that list my properties, and this is the deal that I usually make. If I sell the property myself through a buyer that was not brought to me from the agent, I pay no commissions, nothing. But I will reimburse for legitimate marketing expenses while they were trying. Okay? So if they spent a couple of $100 on an ad in the paper or signs out in front of the property, I'll reimburse them for that at that time. But I pay no commissions to them. If they bring me someone that wants to lease option the property where I'm holding terms, then we negotiate the transaction at that point based upon the value of the person that's being brought to me. For instance, let me give you an example of that. If someone were to bring me a buyer that couldn't buy my house but could lease option it from me, and they had $100,000 down, that would be more valuable than someone with $1,000 deposit that wants to rent it for a year. You understand? $100,000 down, that may have taken some networking, some motivation on that agent to find that person, and that's as good as a sale to me. So therefore, I would pay more, if not all, of the commissions for that person, versus someone that they say doesn't have a job, has bad credit, they have first and last month's rent, and would you like to sell your property to that person? They can't expect a full commission when I'm not even collecting the full commission. I'm not pulling out of my pocket to sell it to anybody. I'm not going to pay out of my pocket more money than the buyer brought in. And really, there's not a lot of buyers or sellers that will, right? When we're buyers out there, we have to make sure that we understand where the commissions are. There are other ways that I've negotiated with agents as well, such as if a buyer comes to me and has an acceptable down payment on the property, and I'm going to lease it with an option to purchase it for a period of time, I may negotiate and give the agent a note that would be due and payable upon that person exercising their purchase of the property. So just in case I die, there's something for the agent to say, I brought him that buyer. That buyer purchased at a later time, so I'm owed this amount of money. So maybe the note would be recorded against the property. They've got a note due and payable upon the exercise. If they don't exercise the options, what did I have? I didn't have a buyer, did I? I just had an extended rent period. So then I wouldn't pay that note. But, let me tell you a story about a guy. I loved him dearly, and the first time I met him was on it was a telephone call, and I was making an offer on a property that he listed. And he said to me, "Hey kid, in the real world, we don't make offers like this." That's what he said. He was probably 20 years old, 21 years old. And he had been an agent for some time. And it upset me. I was like, wow, I'm embarrassed. I don't know as much as he does, so therefore I'm embarrassed by it. So every time I would see a listing that had his name on it, I would throw it away. I wouldn't even make an offer on it, because I didn't want to be embarrassed by this brash guy. Until one day I had a property listed, and he brought me a buyer. And he sat down across from me, and he had the offer, and I said, "I know you." And I said, "I made an offer on the property probably 2 years ago. And you told me, look, kid, in the real world, we don't make offers like this." And he said, "Really? Must have been in a bad mood